Hey guys, welcome to the Pistons Talk Podcast Postgame show. If you're new here, what we do is we break down each individual quarter. After that, we open the show up to questions and comments. We're going to get into this Detroit Pistons loss tonight. So let's start with the first quarter. At the first quarter, very entertaining, I'll say. Very offensive. I liked what I saw out of Jalen Duren the first 5, maybe 6 minutes into the game. He was really active, probably the most um, active he's been, especially after the challenge that JB Bickerstaff took. But honestly, just kind of, you know, as the quarter went on, the Bucks just came out aggressive. Damian Lillard, Giannis Antetokounmpo, um, others on their team, and they just could not miss a damn shot. They hit over 23 3-pointers tonight, got to the free throw line over 20 times. Uh, kind of talk into officiating a little bit later, but they end the first quarter. Milwaukee leads by 5, 36-31. Jumping into the second quarter, Milwaukee still could not miss. It was kind of insane. It felt like I was watching a game of 2K and their sliders were all the way up because they shot damn near 70% from three. At one point, especially in the second quarter, they shot over 74% from the field. And the Pistons just could not make any type of defensive stops. There were defensive lapses where they just weren't, fully paying attention. They weren't aware. They weren't closing out on three-point shooters. And the foul calls started to happen in the second quarter where, listen, I'm not going to come up here and tell you guys the Detroit Pistons lost this game because of officiating. But I will say the officiating was not called down the middle, especially for the Detroit Pistons. The Bucks were getting marginal contact from the Detroit Pistons defensively, and they were just getting whistles that I think they just don't deserve. I think Giannis and Dame to me have the best whistles in the NBA. Can't even touch these guys. There was one possession where Ron Holland tried to defend Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard pushed off, and Dame got free throws out of it. We all know Giannis. Giannis is just a freak of an athlete. That's why they call him the Greek freak. But you can't really touch the guy, and he's really hard to stop around the painted area and the rim. He's just so strong and physically gifted. But Pistons do end the second quarter with a Milwaukee Bucks lead of 78-59. Now, coming out of halftime, I just don't think the Pistons had it. I thought the Bucks were a team that were a little bit more aggressive, moving the ball side to side. I think the Bucks knew that the Pistons weren't going to try to get back into this game. Just the energy, the body language. Pistons just couldn't really, string together, defensive stop after defensive stop after defensive stop. And Milwaukee just continued to, put their foot on the gas and continue to stockpile that lead. I really don't have anything written down for the Pistons in these third quarter notes. Milwaukee ends the third quarter 110-88. In the fourth quarter, only thing I wrote down was JB Bickerstaff took his starters out at the 6:14 mark. And I think the reason why he did that is you have Boston tomorrow. You have another back-to-back. You have 6 back-to-backs in less than 30 games. So I understand why JB Bickerstaff kind of waved the white flag, if you will. You have to worry about another Eastern Conference powerhouse in the Boston Celtics. You have to travel to Boston tomorrow, go see them, play them at their house. But your Detroit Pistons do lose this game to the Milwaukee Bucks. Final score of this game, I do apologize. I had it written down earlier. I just can't find it right now. 128-107. So the Pistons are now on a 2-game losing streak. Hopefully they can come out a little bit more aggressive against the Boston Celtics tomorrow. Honestly, just kind of watching this game, I do want to say this. I think this was a game that a lot of people in the city of Detroit talked about today and over the last couple of days. Now, we all know that the NBA Cup is something fun that the NBA does, the in-season tournament. And I thought this would be good for the Pistons to understand what it is like to face pressure in elimination games. Because they're not going to advance to the next round to possibly go to Las Vegas to try to compete for the NBA Cup. They went 3-1 in their cup games. I thought overall they had a pretty good in-season tournament, just outside of this game. Um, but what I wanted to segue into is this city is so starving for good basketball. They're so starving for a competent product on the floor. And I will say, JB has done a pretty good job of trying to build up these young guys. In my opinion, it seems like when they played under Monty Williams, they had no sort of confidence. But if you went to the game tonight, or you even talked to, just a casual Pistons fan, like that's the impression you leave. Probably isn't, a good taste in your mouth, kind of a gut punch, if you will. I still believe in this team. I still think this team is going in the right direction. Now, my expectations to go into the season probably weren't as high as your guys' expectations. I still had this team at around a 27 win pace. I thought that would be progression. Um, I know some people as of late have been talking like 30s, mid 30s, even possibly 40s. So I'm pretty even keeled. I still like where this team is going, but saw people talking on Twitter, talking on the timeline, saying how this is disappointing. It's going to be really hard for Pistons fans to come out the games now after you kind of, have that performance in a, in season tournament, NBA Cup game. It is disappointing. It is something that even if you maybe lost by 10, at least it'd be a tougher pill to um, swallow. But you got blown out. The Bucks were red hot from three. The officiating, I really didn't feel was consistent throughout the game, but that's just kind of my thoughts. I do want to get into some comments and questions from you guys that are listening live on YouTube. I'm just going to take a short break and then we'll get to your comments and questions right after this. Okay, you guys, we're back. This is the part of the podcast where I make it about you guys. Any questions and comments? We're going to open it up to the show right now. So, we have a couple of comments and questions from you guys that did drop them in the live chat. So, let's go to Rasheed Wallace's bald spot. He does have the first comment of tonight's show. And it says, refs made this game unwatchable. Still think we lose to the Bucks shooting, but it shouldn't be as bad as it was. Yeah, I'm not really one to complain about officiating, but if you guys were watching the game live, um, the Pistons weren't getting the same whistle that Milwaukee was getting. And obviously, to your point, yeah, like Pistons probably still lose this game just because the Bucks were red hot especially in the second quarter. I think they shot 74%, almost 75% from the field in that second quarter. But when the officiating is as one-sided as it was, it's just an uphill battle to climb if you're the Detroit Pistons. I really did not like the officiating tonight, especially in the second quarter. I thought it was like really, really apparent and really, really bad. Multiple plays where Kate Cunningham got hit, Jaden Ivey got hit, Jalen Duren was getting grabbed. They just weren't calling it. They kind of swallowed their whistle when the Detroit Pistons had the basketball, but not for the Milwaukee Bucks. And obviously they have star power and Giannis Antetokounmpo and Damian Lillard. And even Greg Kelser said, you know, Damian Lillard's going to get those superstar calls. Giannis is going to get those superstar calls. Pistons just haven't gotten to the point where they're going to get those calls. And I hate that it's so damn true, but it is. The refs will be a little bit more lenient towards, the bigger stars in the NBA. But I do agree with you, man. Like, the game was pretty unwatchable, in my opinion, too. Comment from Case Cracked. We need a consistent star-level talent here. We have a nice pool of decent players. Trying to beat a team with Lillard, Giannis, Lopez is tough. I agree, man. Like, we talked about this on the podcast with Hunter Patterson. He's the brand new Detroit Pistons reporter for The Athletic. And we had kind of talked about, like, if the Pistons have a good season to make a playoff run, like, could Trajan make a big splash? And he kind of basically said, like, I don't see why it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibilities. But to get back to your comment, Case, I agree with you. I think you have enough young talent. And when we have conversations like this where you need a secondary, 20-point per game scorer next to Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey, I think that we're getting towards those conversations more and more, it seems, the more podcasts we do, the weeks, the months. And I agree with you. Now, who is that consistent star-level talent? I don't know. Is it Brandon Ingram? Don't know. He just switched to Clutch Sports. He's probably looking to get paid. Is it someone in free agency that you're looking at? I don't know if, a high level, star player would willingly come here in the midst of a team trying to, get back on track of trying to win more than 14 games this season. I think we're definitely going in the right direction. But if we do get a star player, in my opinion anyways, it's going to have to be via trade. Kind of like how we landed Blake Griffin years ago. No shot in the dark Blake Griffin would ever sign with the Detroit Pistons in free agency, but he was under contract. They traded for him. Obviously, the Blake Griffin experience did not end the way that Pistons fans wanted it to be. Injuries were a factor to that, but I do believe if the Pistons do want to get a secondary star next to Cade Cunningham or just an all-star level type talent to be a secondary scoring option, not make Cade Cunningham do damn near everything. I think you have the talent. You have a couple of second-round picks that you could dangle. Obviously, we can't trade first because of the Isaiah Stewart trade, and there's protections on that. Can't really make trades until draft night now that the Minnesota Timberwolves own your pick. But I'm kind of rambling. I do agree with you, Case. I feel like we've had this discussion. It's been podcast topics in previous podcasts. I'm with you. I think it is time. We're getting closer to the trading deadline. I don't know if they do it this year, though. Maybe this summer. It's a maybe. Because I think Trajan wants to evaluate all these guys. He just got here. He doesn't know what he has yet. But I do think the time where we might say goodbye to a young talent and maybe a salary filler is getting closer than we actually think. But I feel like we've just talked about it so much, and it doesn't surprise me that you guys continue to bring it up because I'm kind of getting antsy. I mean, we've been rebuilding since 2020. We have the talent. We have guys that, as fans, we think that could be possibly building blocks, but I think eventually you're going to have to kind of bite the bullet on one of these young guys and just say, like, you know what? We think we have our core. Let's go try to, push for 35, 40 wins this season. Like, let's put our chips on the table and see what we can do. But I do think that it's getting closer than we think. I have a Comment from Cruisin 923, and it says Giannis played flawless on the offensive end for the Bucks for a large stretch of this game. Yeah, he was like perfect from the field. I think all the way up until maybe late third, early fourth. When Giannis is hitting his mid-range shots, getting to the free throw line, distributing, just being a force in transition, he's just a tough cover. Obviously, Isaiah Stewart fouled out. Jalen Duren had 5 fouls. Like, he's just such a tough matchup, and that's why so many teams in the NBA have a tough time defending him. I think he's unguardable when he's, just hitting those 15 to 18-foot mid-range shots. I think a lot of people have talked like, if Giannis developed a jump shot, he would probably be the best player in the NBA. And I mean, like, he's still continuing to develop. I think this year he's done a much better job of hitting jump shots. And when we saw the Milwaukee Bucks in November, they were obviously struggling, but since then they've been one of the hottest teams in the NBA. Like, they've been a very good team. When you look at the Eastern Conference standings, they're continuing to rise up into these Eastern Conference playoff standings. And I think they're going to be a team to be reckoned with in the East. Like, they could easily, you know, challenge Boston to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. With the Cavs and the Magic, you never really know, but he's a good player. There's a reason why he's an NBA champion. There's a reason why he has an MVP trophy. He's just one of the better players in our league. But I do want to get to a couple more questions and comments with you guys. I'm just kind of scrolling through them right now. I do apologize if there is some dead space. I do want to get into this comment from Devon, and it says, "Can we get to 500 this year for a day at least?" I think it's possible. I really do. I apologize if you can hear my neighbor's dog barking at 10 o'clock at night. Surprise, surprise, my neighbor is a human piece of garbage. But basically, Devon, can we get to 500? I think so. I do. I think when you look at the record, 9-14, they need to go on a winning streak. Schedule obviously this week does not get easier, but I do think there is a chance for them to possibly go on a win streak, stack some good games together. But at the end of the day, they have to start winning basketball games if they want to get to 500. I do think it is possible, though. Get to a couple more comments and questions. Just reading some of your comments. You guys did a great job, but they barely beat the Heat. The Heat summer league under an old man Dame. Bucks are not doing nothing this year. It's Boston's and Cavs now. I honestly think that the Heat game, it was kind of weird, but I could possibly still have them, coming out of the East. Comment from Cliff: "We just ran into a buzzsaw tonight." I agree, Cliff. That was just a buzzsaw that couldn't miss from three. And then when you have officiating that way, like, it's definitely really difficult to beat them. I have a comment from Joshua. He asks, "Can we talk about Jaden Ivey, number 2 guy? Really, does Ivey have a crossover move besides running past the guy?" Yeah, we could talk about Ivey, Joshua. Could he be a number 2 guy? Could he be a secondary option? Sure. He's averaging 18 points a game this year. Does he have a crossover move besides running past guys? I think that's still a step in development with Jaden Ivey. I think for him to kind of have like a patented move. Well, I cannot talk tonight. I apologize, you guys. Of maybe a crossover, kind of like Cade, or Cade has those kind of like hook shots. I think Jaden Ivey still has a lot of room to grow offensively as a player, and learning to know how to use his speed is something that I'm sure he's still learning. Because we have to remember he's only going into his third year into the NBA. He's not a finished product, but I do think that Jaden Ivey can continue to develop. Could he be a second option? Possibly. Um, I think it's really early to kind of say like, Cade's going to be the first option, Jaden Ivey's going to be the second option. We hope that's the case because that's a backcourt that you possibly want to keep long term. But for right now, on most nights, it's Cade, Jaden Ivey, Malik Beasley. Like those are your like main three options. It seems like on a night to night basis. But I do like Jaden Ivey. I think that he's a player that has taken so many steps in progression and just development. I think this year. Cliff says, I think Ivy could be a number two, but Cade would need to be a number one. I agree there. I think Cade should be the guy that gets the last shot. He should be the guy that's the number one option on this team. You're paying him to be a number one option. I think Jaden Ivey definitely has the potential to be that 20-point per game scorer that I think a lot of people want and need him to be. But I think at the end of the day, we just have to wait and see. Like this is a very young team right now. Obviously, we've had these moral victories for the past 3 years. I know a lot of fans are sick of it. I definitely understand where you guys are at in terms of just like your give a crap level, I should say. It is pretty low, and I can definitely understand where you guys are at. Want to get to a comment from Red Baron. He said you could trade for Simmons or Ball, get some point guard depth, and then sign Naz Reid this offseason. We got to find a way to lose enough to keep our first round pick this year. Okay, so it's a lot to kind of get into with Red Baron, but let's try to get into it. So he's talking about Anthony Simons or possibly Lonzo Ball. Or you could trade for Simmons. Oh, I'm sorry, you said Simmons. Okay. Trade for Ben Simmons or Lonzo Ball. Okay, if I had to trade for one of them, I probably would trade for Lonzo Ball outside of Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons is pretty broken. That's just my opinion. I think even Lonzo Ball with like a borrowed knee, I think, has more upside than a Ben Simmons right now. But I do agree. You do need some point guard depth. Alfred Payton actually got waived today. That could be an option. We talked about some, possible point guards on the last podcast that the Pistons could possibly trade for. Then signed Naz Reid in the offseason. Okay, love the Naz Reid name drop. He's a guy that I was really high on coming out of his draft class. I was really shocked that he slipped. I thought he would have been a first-round talent, at least a late first-round talent. But I really like the Naz Reid name. He's a guy that can spread the floor, protect the paint, pass a little bit, defend. I like where your head's at with Naz Reid now. I think the center conversation kind of gets you'll get into debates with what do you do with Stewart, what do you do with Duran, what do you do with Paul Reed. Those are conversations that you do have to have. But I do like Naz Reid. I just don't know like what they would do in terms of like, does he start? Like, what are your plans with Stewart? What are your plans with Duran? But I like the Naz Reid name. Got to find a way to lose enough to keep the first round pick this year. So the pick is protected, obviously. I think it's top 11 or 13. I don't remember. But I think for the Pistons to eventually keep their pick, they're going to have to lose a few more games. Now, we're in December having conversations about keeping our draft pick. I'm to the point where, like, if they don't keep the draft pick, I'm not upset. I'm really not. I know this is a very deep draft class, but I mean, like, if you're not really drafting in like the top like 8, I mean, I'm just to the point where I'm so sick of saying, well, let's get this draft pick this year. Let's get this draft pick this year. Let's talk about this prospect. I'm honestly tired of just talking about prospects. I am. That's where I'm at. Like, I just want this team to win basketball games. I can't come up here 5 years in a row with you guys and try to sell you guys hope with, the NBA might give us the first overall pick this year when we've been shafted 3 straight years at 5. And I know Atlanta last year, they were like the 10 seed and they won the lottery. But I mean, that's just script writing at its finest. I doubt the NBA is going to give the Pistons another first round pick. They've been rebuilding for so many years. I honestly would rather see them lose their pick, um, and just keep building. Bring in more vets like a Malik Beasley and a Tim Hardaway. Like find good quality vets. Upgrade this roster. Get rid of some young guys. Try to get more adults in the room that can lead this team. I know Organic had mentioned Steven Adams. I love Steven Adams. Steven Adams is a very, very good veteran, good center. Houston was very smart to trade for him while he was injured. They knew he was injured. They really didn't care. They thought, hey, going to the next season, Steven Adams is going to be such a crucial piece for our centers, for our big, for our front court. And Steven Adams is probably one of the best centers in the league. It's setting a pick. He can pass. And he's just knowledgeable at the end of the day. I think those are the type of moves that the Pistons have to make. Like, they have to try to find those, savvy bets like Steven Adams. Or, try to maybe make a splash like on a Fred VanVleet or a Dylan Brooks, Houston is doing an incredible job of building the team. But at the end of the day, I'm just sick of like kind of talking about tanking and draft picks. I don't know about you guys. I've been doing it for like 4 years, just be going on 5. I'm just over it. I'm over it. I really am. Like I'd rather win. Like I don't want to be up here with you guys during the summer talking to you guys about the 8th or 9th best prospect and what are the odds of us winning the lottery. I'm just over it. I really am. I don't know about you guys. I know some of you guys really like the NBA draft, and I'm kind of shitting on your parade. But I'd honestly rather talk about this team winning, playing competitive basketball games, and talking about the NBA draft in December with you guys. 9-14, still a lot of improvement with this team, but overall, I think this free agency in the summer is going to be very interesting. But at the end of the day, I honestly think that this was a tough loss. NBA Cup game. Obviously, you'd like to see the Pistons be a little bit more competitive in this game. But they got to get ready for Boston tomorrow. You got to get ready for the defending NBA champions tomorrow. Last time we played them, very close competitive game. Hoping it's kind of the same of, getting up for Boston. Remember what they said about you. Remember saying that they don't really take you seriously. Get up for that game. I'm to the point where I need them to win another game, you guys, because you're going on a 2-game losing streak. You got Boston tomorrow. You got the Knicks later this week. The schedule this week did not do the Pistons any favors. All these teams they're playing are Eastern Conference playoff favorites, but don't really have anything more to really discuss. But I do appreciate you guys, listening to me ramble for the past 30 minutes or so. We'll see you guys tomorrow, immediately after the Boston Celtics versus the Pistons game. Be another, post game Pistons podcast. But I am going to wrap this one up. Appreciate you guys, just talking with me, discussing free agency, discussing draft stuff already. But at the end of the day, man, it's just tough loss. Hope the Pistons can bounce back, get some rest, and be locked in tomorrow for the Boston Celtics. I will see you guys tomorrow. Hope you guys have a great night. Peace.